The morning I walked into my own kitchen to find a for sale sign being hammered into my front lawn, I knew my world had just shattered into a million pieces. My daughter Sarah was standing by the window, arms crossed, watching the real estate agent with satisfaction written all over her face. When she saw me staring in shock, she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice cold as winter steel. "Pack your things. You're moving to Sunset Manor next week." I stood there in my flannel robe, coffee mug trembling in my hands, staring at this stranger who wore my daughter's face. This was the same little girl I'd rocked to sleep through countless nightmare-filled nights, the same teenager I'd worked double shifts to put through college, the same woman whose own children I'd babysat every weekend for the past 10 years while she and her husband went out to live their lives. "Sarah, what are you talking about? This is my house. I've lived here for 37 years. She let out an exasperated sigh, like I was some confused old woman who couldn't understand simple concepts. "Mom, be realistic. You can't maintain this place anymore. The stairs are too much for you. The yard work is overwhelming. And honestly, we're tired of worrying about you rattling around in this big old house all alone." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. "But I'm only 68, Sarah. I walk 5 miles every morning, I tend my garden, I cook for the church potluck every month. There's nothing wrong with me." That's when my son Michael walked through the front door like he owned the place, which apparently he was about to. He had that smug expression he'd worn since childhood whenever he thought he was being clever. Behind him trailed his wife Jennifer, who couldn't even look me in the eye. "Hey Mom," Michael said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Good, Sarah already told you. This is really for the best. Sunset Manor has activities, meals provided, medical staff on site. You'll love it there." I felt like I was living in some horrible nightmare. These were my children, my babies that I'd sacrificed everything for, and they were talking about me like I was a burden to be shuffled off and forgotten. "Have you both lost your minds?" I managed to say, though my voice came out as barely a whisper. "This is my home. These are my memories. Your father and I bought this house when Sarah was just 3 years old. He died in the bedroom upstairs. I've never lived anywhere else." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Mom, you're being dramatic. Dad's been gone for 8 years. It's time to move on. Besides, we've already put money down on the nursing home." "It's not a nursing home," I said firmly. "And I'm not going anywhere." Michael stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't just indifference, it was calculation. "Actually, Mom, you don't have a choice. We've been talking to elder care services, and they agree that you can't live independently anymore. We have documentation of your increasing forgetfulness, your inability to maintain the property, your isolation from friends and family." My mouth fell open. "What documentation? What are you talking about? I've never been more sharp or independent in my life." Jennifer finally spoke up, though she still wouldn't meet my eyes. "Agnes, last month you forgot Sarah's birthday." I did not forget Sarah's birthday. I called her 3 times that day and she never answered. I left voicemails and sent a card that I know she received because she posted a picture of it on Facebook. Sarah waved her hand dismissively. "See? You're getting defensive and confused. This just proves our point." I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd given my entire life to, and realized that everything I thought I knew about my children was a lie. They weren't concerned about my well-being. They wanted my house. This house that I'd spent 4 decades turning into a home. The kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals, where I'd helped with homework every night, where I'd nursed sick children back to health with homemade soup and endless patience. The living room where we'd celebrated every Christmas morning, where I'd thrown birthday parties and graduation parties and hosted family dinners every Sunday for 25 years without fail. I'd painted every room in this house myself when money was tight. I'd planted the rose garden that had been featured in the local newspaper. I'd refinished the hardwood floors by hand when the kids were in high school because we couldn't afford professional help. Every inch of this place held my sweat, my tears, my love. And my children wanted to sell it out from under me like I was already dead. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Michael and Sarah exchanged a look that told me everything. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a conspiracy. "Mom, we've been worried about you for a while. Sarah said in that condescending tone she perfected. Living alone in this big house isn't safe. What if you fall down the stairs? What if you forget to turn off the stove? What if something happens and nobody finds you for days? I have neighbors, I protested. I have friends from church. Mrs. Patterson next door checks on me every morning when she sees me get my newspaper. I'm not isolated. Mrs. Patterson is 83 years old, Michael said. She can barely take care of herself. And your church friends are all in their 70s and 80s too. That's not a support system, Mom. That's a liability. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My friends, my community, my independence, it was all being dismissed as inadequate, dangerous, shameful. And what about my grandchildren? I asked. Emma and James come here every weekend. They love this house. Emma learned to ride a bike in the driveway. James built his first treehouse in the backyard oak. This is their home too. Jennifer finally looked up, and I saw guilt flicker across her face before she hardened her expression. They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. Resilient. Like that was supposed to make everything okay. I thought about Emma, my sweet 10-year-old granddaughter who'd been staying with me every weekend since she was old enough to walk. How she'd race up those stairs that Sarah claimed were too dangerous for me, eager to play dress-up with the costumes I kept in the spare room closet. How she'd help me bake cookies every Saturday morning, standing on the same wooden stool her mother had used 30 years before. I thought about James, 8 years old and full of curiosity, who'd spend hours with me in the garden learning the names of flowers and how to coax tomatoes to grow fat and red. Just last weekend he'd proudly announced that when he grew up, he was going to live in Grandma Agnes's house forever and take care of all the plants. How was I supposed to tell them that their weekend sanctuary was being sold? That the place where they felt most loved and accepted was disappearing, because their parents had decided their grandmother was inconvenient? You haven't told them yet, have you? I realized. Sarah's silence was answer enough. You were planning to present this as a done deal. Move me out and then explain to Emma and James that Grandma Agnes had to go away because she was too old and sick to take care of herself. We'll explain it appropriately, Michael said stiffly. Appropriately. I tasted the word like poison. You mean you'll lie to them the same way you're lying to me? We are not lying, Sarah snapped, and for the first time, I heard real anger in her voice instead of cold calculation. Mom, you are 68 years old. You live alone in a 3-bedroom house that's too big for you, too expensive to maintain, and frankly too isolated for someone your age. Sunset Manor has a waiting list. We were lucky to get you a spot. Lucky. I set my coffee mug down carefully on the counter, my hands steadier than they'd been since this nightmare began. How exactly is this lucky for me, Sarah? How is losing my home, my independence, and my dignity lucky? Because you'll be safe, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Safe from what? Living my own life? Making my own decisions? Being treated like an adult instead of a problem to be solved? Michael stepped forward again, and I could see he was getting frustrated with my resistance to their plan. Mom, this isn't up for debate. The paperwork is already filed. The real estate agent will be showing the house starting Monday. Your room at Sunset Manor is available next Friday. We'll help you pack your essentials, but most of your furniture won't fit, so we'll need to sell it or donate it. My furniture. The dining room set that had been a wedding gift from my parents. The rocking chair where I'd nursed both my children and later rocked my grandchildren to sleep. The hope chest that had belonged to my grandmother, full of quilts and family photographs and memories spanning for generations. What about my things? My photographs, my keepsakes, my books. You can take some personal items, Jennifer said quietly. But the room is small. You'll need to be selective. Selective. 68 years of life, memories, love, and loss. And I'd need to be selective about which pieces were worth saving. I looked around my kitchen, really looked at it, trying to memorize every detail. The morning sunlight streaming through the window over the sink where I'd done dishes and watched my children play in the backyard. The kitchen table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where I'd helped with homework and art projects and science fair displays. The refrigerator covered with photographs and report cards and crayon drawings that Emma and James had made for me. This wasn't just a house. This was the repository of everything that mattered in my life. I need some time to think about this, I said finally. There's nothing to think about, Sarah replied. It's already decided. Nothing is decided until I say it's decided. This is still my house, and I am still a grown woman capable of making my own choices. Michael pulled out his phone. Actually, Mom, we've already spoken with an attorney. Given your age and your increasing inability to maintain the property, we can pursue guardianship if necessary. The words hit me like a physical blow. Guardianship. They were threatening to have me declared incompetent if I didn't comply with their demands. You would do that to me? I whispered. You would take away my legal rights, my freedom, my dignity just to get your hands on my house? It's not about the house, Sarah said, but her voice wavered slightly. It's about what's best for you. But I could see the truth in their eyes now. It was about the house. It was about the property value in our neighborhood that had tripled in the past decade. It was about the inheritance they didn't want to wait for. I was still alive, still healthy, still independent, but in their minds I was already dead. They were already dividing up my possessions and my life as if I no longer existed. The real estate agent knocked on the door then. A cheerful woman in her 40s who had no idea she was walking into the middle of my family's betrayal. Mrs. Henderson? I'm Carol Martinez from Premier Properties. I'm here to do the initial walkthrough for the listing. Sarah opened the door with a bright smile that made my stomach turn. Carol, perfect timing. This is my mother, Agnes. Mom, Carol is going to help us get the house ready for sale. Carol extended her hand to me with professional warmth. It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Henderson. Sarah tells me you're moving somewhere smaller and more manageable. That's so smart. This is a beautiful property, but I can imagine it's quite a lot to maintain. I shook her hand numbly, unable to find my voice. Here was a complete stranger discussing my life like it was already settled, like my opinion didn't matter. The bones of this house are fantastic, Carol continued, pulling out her phone to take notes. 1950s construction, hardwood floors, original fixtures. The market for vintage homes in this neighborhood is incredible right now. I'm thinking we can list it significantly above asking and still get multiple offers. Multiple offers. Bidding wars. My home reduced to square footage and market value. How much do you think it's worth? Michael asked, and I could hear the greed in his voice. Carol looked around appraisingly. Based on recent comparables in the neighborhood, I'd estimate somewhere between $450,000 and $500,000. I saw Michael and Sarah exchange another look, and this time there was no hiding their excitement. $500,000. That's what my life was worth to them. Of course, we'll need to do some staging, Carol continued. Clear out the personal items, maybe do some light renovations to maximize appeal. Nothing major, just freshen up the paint. Maybe update the kitchen hardware. Freshen up the paint. The paint I'd chosen carefully for each room. Colors that reflected the love and warmth I'd wanted to create for my family. How quickly could we close? Sarah asked. In this market, probably 30 to 45 days from listing. I have several clients looking for exactly this type of property. 30 to 45 days. That's how long I had left in the home I'd spent my entire adult life creating. After Carol left, my children sat me down at my own kitchen table like I was a child who needed to have the rules explained to her. Mom, we know this is hard, Michael said, though his tone suggested he found my distress inconvenient rather than heartbreaking. But change is part of life. You raised us to be independent, to make smart decisions. Now we're making smart decisions for you. You're making decisions for yourselves, I corrected. You want this house sold so you can split the money. At least have the honesty to admit that. Sarah's face flushed. That is not what this is about. Isn't it? You're forcing me out of my home, moving me into a nursing home I never chose, and selling my property. All for my own good, according to you. But somehow you'll end up with $500,000 in the process. We're your children, Michael said. This money would have come to us eventually anyway. Eventually. As in after I died. But apparently they didn't want to wait that long. Get out, I said quietly. They both stared at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. I said get out. Both of you. This is still my house, and I want you to leave. Sarah stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Mom, you're being unreasonable. We're trying to help you. You're trying to steal from me. You're trying to rob me of my home, my independence, and my dignity. And you're doing it while pretending it's for my own good. I've never been so disappointed in anyone in my entire life. Michael's face hardened. Fine. We'll give you some time to come to your senses. But Mom, this is happening whether you cooperate or not. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, but it's getting done. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen for hours, watching the shadows lengthen across the floor. The house felt different now, like it knew it was under siege. Every creak and settling sound seemed mournful. I thought about all the years I'd sacrificed for my children. How I'd worked 2 jobs after their father died to keep us in this house because I knew how important stability was for kids. How I'd given up dating, given up traveling, given up any chance at a second marriage because I wanted to focus entirely on being the best mother I could be. I'd put their needs ahead of my own for decades. I'd celebrated every achievement, comforted every heartbreak, supported every dream. When Sarah went through her bitter divorce, I'd taken her and the kids in for 8 months, giving them my bedroom while I slept on the living room couch. When Michael lost his job 3 years ago, I'd given him $15,000 from my savings. Money I'd planned to use to fix the roof and update the plumbing. I'd been the constant, reliable presence in their lives. The grandmother who never missed a recital or a game. The mother who always answered the phone, no matter what time they called. The woman who'd made this house a sanctuary where everyone was welcome, everyone was fed, everyone was loved. And this was how they repaid me, by deciding I was inconvenient. But as I sat there in the gathering darkness, something began to shift inside me. The shock was wearing off, and underneath it, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Real clean, righteous anger. I was not a helpless old woman. I was not incompetent or confused or incapable. I was a 68-year-old woman in excellent health with a sharp mind and a lifetime of experience dealing with challenges. If my children thought they could steamroll me into giving up everything that mattered to me, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I had raised them to be strong and independent. Now they were going to see exactly where they'd gotten those qualities from. The first thing I did was call my attorney, Harold Wishman, who'd handled my husband's estate and had been a family friend for over 20 years. Harold, it's Agnes Henderson. I need your advice about something urgent. Of course, Agnes. What's going on? I explained the situation, and I could hear Harold's sharp intake of breath when I described my children's threats about guardianship. Agnes, guardianship is an extreme legal measure that requires substantial evidence of incapacity. From what you're telling me, you have no cognitive impairment, no physical limitations that prevent you from living independently, and no financial mismanagement issues. Their threats are legally baseless. But they seem so confident that they can make this happen. They're bluffing, Harold said firmly. However, we need to take some protective measures immediately. First, I want you to see your doctor for a complete physical and cognitive assessment. We need documentation of your excellent health and mental acuity. Second, I'm going to draft a new power of attorney document that specifically revokes any previous documents and designates someone other than your children to make decisions for you, if you ever become incapacitated. Who would I designate? Do you have any close friends or relatives you trust completely? I thought immediately of my sister Dorothy, who lived in Arizona but called me every week and had always been my closest confidant. She was 2 years younger than me, sharp as a tack, and had never liked my children's entitled attitudes. My sister Dorothy. Perfect. I'll also help you establish a trust to protect your assets. And Agnes, I want you to document everything. Every conversation with your children, every threat they make, every action they take. We may need evidence if they try to follow through on their guardianship threat. For the first time since finding that for sale sign in my yard, I felt like I could breathe again. I wasn't powerless. I had options. The next morning I called Dr. Patricia Steinberg, who'd been my physician for 15 years. Dr. Steinberg, I need to schedule a complete physical and mental health evaluation as soon as possible. My children are claiming I'm incompetent and trying to force me into a nursing home. There was a long pause. Agnes, I saw you just 3 months ago for your annual checkup. Your blood pressure is perfect, your cholesterol is excellent, you have no signs of cognitive decline, and you're in better shape than most 50-year-olds. What's really going on here? I explained the situation, and Dr. Steinberg's voice grew cold with professional anger. This is elder abuse, Agnes. What your children are doing is a form of financial and emotional abuse. I'll schedule you for a complete evaluation this week, including cognitive testing, but I can tell you right now that you're going to pass with flying colors. Can you put that in writing? Absolutely. I'll provide a comprehensive letter detailing your excellent physical and mental health, your capacity for independent living, and my professional opinion that institutionalizing you would be harmful and completely unnecessary. My next call was to Dorothy. Aggie? She answered on the second ring. What's wrong? You sound upset. Dorothy had always been able to read my moods, even over the phone. I told her everything, and by the time I finished she was spitting mad. Those ungrateful little vultures, she said. After everything you've done for them. Aggie, you pack a bag and come stay with me while we figure this out. I can't leave, Dorothy. If I abandon the house, they'll use that as evidence that I can't maintain it. Then I'm coming there. Give me 24 hours to arrange things, and I'll be on a plane. Having Dorothy's support felt like finding solid ground after days of quicksand. She'd always been the fighter in our family, the one who stood up to bullies and refused to back down from anyone. That afternoon, Emma and James showed up for their regular weekend visit, dropped off by Jennifer with barely a word to me. I wondered if she felt guilty about what they were doing, but not guilty enough to stop it. Grandma Agnes. Emma ran into my arms with her usual enthusiasm. Can we bake cookies today? I learned a new recipe at school. I hugged her tight, breathing in her little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and playground sunshine. How was I supposed to tell her that these weekend visits might be ending soon? Of course we can bake cookies, sweetheart. We can bake whatever you want. James was already running toward the backyard to check on the garden we'd been tending together. Grandma, the tomatoes got bigger. And I think the sunflowers grew 2 inches since last week. I followed them outside, watching them explore every corner of the property with the wonder and ownership that only children possess. This was their second home, the place where they felt completely free and beloved. Emma climbed up into the old tire swing that hung from the massive oak tree. Daddy says you might move to a smaller house, she said casually, pumping her legs to get higher. Will we still come visit you every weekend? My heart clenched. So they had started preparing the children, but with lies and half-truths. What else did Daddy tell you about me moving? James looked up from the tomato plants. He said you're getting old and you need people to take care of you. But you don't seem old to me, Grandma. You can still beat me in races. And you know more about plants than anyone, Emma added. If you move, who's going to teach us about gardening? I sat down on the garden bench, gesturing for them to come sit with me. These children deserved honesty, not the sanitized version their parents were feeding them. I need to tell you both something important. Your mom and dad want me to move to a place called Sunset Manor, where other older people live. They think I'm too old to take care of this house by myself. Emma's face crumpled. But this is your house. You love this house. I do love this house. And I love having you here every weekend. That's why I'm not going to move unless I choose to. James looked confused. But if Mom and Dad say you have to move, don't you have to listen to them? No, sweetheart. I'm still an adult, and I get to make my own decisions about where I live and how I spend my time. Your parents are worried about me, but I think their worry is unnecessary. We could help you take care of the house, Emma said eagerly. I'm really good at organizing closets, and James knows all about the garden now. I pulled them both close, feeling their small bodies warm and solid against mine. You both help me more than you know. This house is happier when you're here. We spent the rest of the weekend doing all our usual activities, but everything felt bittersweet. I found myself memorizing moments. Emma's concentrated expression as she measured flour for cookies, James's delighted laughter when he discovered a ladybug on the rose bushes, both of them curled up next to me on the couch for our traditional Saturday night movie. When Jennifer came to pick them up Sunday evening, the kids ran to hug me goodbye with extra fierceness. We'll see you next weekend, right, Grandma? Emma asked anxiously. I'll be right here, I promised, meeting Jennifer's eyes over Emma's head. Jennifer had the grace to look uncomfortable. Kids, get in the car. We need to get home for baths and school preparation. After they left, I sat in my quiet house and made a decision. My children might be willing to sacrifice my happiness and independence for their financial gain, But I wasn't going to make it easy for them. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. Dorothy arrived Monday afternoon like a whirlwind of righteous indignation. She took one look at my face and wrapped me in a fierce hug. "How are you holding up, honey?" "I'm angry," I said, surprising myself with the vehemence in my voice. "I'm so angry I can barely think straight." "Good. Anger is useful. It means you're not giving up." Dorothy had always been the practical one in our family. Within an hour of arriving, she'd unpacked her suitcase in the guest room, surveyed the house like a general planning strategy, and started making lists. "First, we document everything," she said, pulling out a fresh notebook. "Every conversation, every threat, every action they take. Second, we get you prepared legally and medically to fight any guardianship attempt. Third, we make sure this house is in absolutely perfect condition, so they can't claim you're unable to maintain it." "Dorothy, what if they're right? What if I am too old for this house?" She fixed me with a look that reminded me of our mother. "Agnes Marie Henderson, you are 68 years old, not 98. You walk 5 miles every morning, you cook for half the congregation every month, you maintain a garden that's the envy of the neighborhood, and you take care of your grandchildren every weekend without breaking a sweat. The only thing you're too old for is putting up with ungrateful children who think they can push you around." That afternoon, Sarah called. "Mom, I heard Dorothy is visiting." "That's nice, but it doesn't change anything. The house listing goes live tomorrow, and we've scheduled your move-in date at Sunset Manor for Friday." "Actually, Sarah, it changes everything. I've spoken with my attorney, and he's informed me that you have no legal authority to sell my house or move me anywhere I don't choose to go." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, we've been over this. You can't live independently anymore." "According to whom?" "Dr. Steinberg examined me this week and provided a written assessment confirming that I'm in excellent health and fully capable of independent living. Harold Wishman has reviewed my legal and financial situation and confirmed that I have no grounds for guardianship concerns." "So tell me, Sarah, what exactly is your evidence that I'm incompetent?" More silence. "The house is too big for you," she said finally, but her voice lacked its earlier confidence. "That's my decision to make, not yours." "Mom, we're trying to protect you." "No, you're trying to cash in on me. And I'm not going to let that happen. You can't stop us from pursuing guardianship." "Actually, I can. And I will. Harold is prepared to fight any guardianship petition with medical evidence, financial records, and witness testimony. He's also prepared to pursue elder abuse charges if you continue to harass and threaten me." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "Elder abuse? Mom, that's ridiculous." "Is it? You're attempting to force me out of my home against my will, trying to control my living situation through threats and intimidation, and claiming I'm incompetent despite evidence to the contrary. That's textbook elder abuse, according to Harold. I can't believe you're turning this into some kind of legal battle." "I didn't turn it into anything, Sarah. You created this situation when you decided to treat me like a problem to be solved instead of a person whose wishes matter." After I hung up, Dorothy raised her coffee mug in a toast. "That's my sister. Now let's get ready for the real fight." Michael showed up Tuesday morning with the real estate agent and a photographer, apparently expecting to find me packing my belongings in defeated submission. Instead, they found Dorothy and me having coffee on the front porch, watching a crew of landscapers refresh the flower beds. "Mom, what's going on?" Michael demanded. "Why are there landscapers here?" "I decided the front garden needed some attention," I said calmly. Dorothy thought the house would look even more beautiful with some fresh plantings. Carol, the real estate agent, looked confused. "I thought we were doing the photo shoot today for the listing." "There's been a change of plans," I said pleasantly. "The house is no longer for sale." Michael's face turned red. "Mom, we discussed this. You can't just change your mind." "Actually, I can. It's my house." Carol looked between Michael and me uncertainly. "I'm sorry, but I need clarification. Who exactly is my client here?" "You don't have a client," Dorothy said firmly. "This property is not for sale." Michael pulled Carol aside for a heated whispered conversation, but I could see the moment she realized she was caught in the middle of a family dispute she wanted no part of. "I'm going to need written authorization from the property owner before I can proceed with any listing," she said professionally. "Mr. Henderson, I'll need to postpone this until you can provide proper documentation. After they left, Michael turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before. It was cold, calculating, and completely without love. Mom, you're making a huge mistake. We're trying to do what's best for you, but if you want to make this difficult, we can play hardball too. Is that a threat, Michael? It's a promise. We have documentation of your inability to maintain this property. We have witnesses who will testify that you're isolated and showing signs of cognitive decline. We can make a compelling case for guardianship, and once that happens, you'll have no say in where you live or what happens to your assets. Dorothy stood up, and I could see our mother's fierce protectiveness in her posture. Michael, I've been listening to you threaten and intimidate your mother for 3 days now, and I've had enough. You want to play hardball? Let's play. She pulled out her phone and opened the voice recording app. I've been recording every conversation you've had with your mother since I arrived. I have documentation of your threats, your attempts at financial coercion, and your plans to institutionalize a healthy, competent woman against her will. Michael's face went pale. I've also spoken with Emma and James, Dorothy continued, and recorded their conversations about how much they love this house and how confused they are about their parents' claims that their grandmother is too old to live independently. Do you think a judge would be interested in hearing children testify that their grandmother is strong and capable, while their parents claim she's incompetent? You can't use my children in this, Michael said, but his voice was shaking. We're not using anyone, I said quietly. We're simply prepared to tell the truth. The question is, are you? That evening, Harold called with news that made my heart race with vindication. Agnes, I've done some research into Sunset Manor, the facility where your children want to place you. They require a substantial entrance fee, nearly $50,000, plus monthly fees of over $4,000. Interestingly, the facility offers a referral bonus to family members who bring in new residents. My stomach dropped. A referral bonus? $5,000, paid to the family member who facilitates the placement. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Not only were my children planning to sell my house and split the proceeds, they were also getting paid to dump me in a nursing home. Harold, can you find out if they've already received this money? I'll make some calls. Dorothy found me sitting at the kitchen table an hour later, staring into space. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I told her about the referral bonus, and she sat down heavily in the chair across from me. Those greedy, heartless little monsters, she said finally. Aggie, they've been planning this for months. Maybe longer. I thought back over the past year, looking for signs I'd missed. Sarah's increased criticism of my housekeeping. Michael's comments about the neighborhood getting too urban for someone my age. Their subtle suggestions that I was becoming forgetful, isolated, unable to cope with independence. They'd been building a case against me, creating a narrative of decline and incompetence to justify their plans. I feel so stupid, I whispered. I trusted them completely. I never questioned their motives because they're my children and I thought they loved me. They do love you, Dorothy said firmly. But they love money more. And that's a choice they'll have to live with. Harold called back the next morning with news that made my blood boil. Agnes, Sarah received the referral bonus from Sunset Manor 6 weeks ago. The payment was made after she submitted your application and provided medical records stating that you were experiencing cognitive decline and social isolation. Medical records? What medical records? Records that claim to be from Dr. Steinberg's office, indicating concerns about your memory and judgment. Agnes, I need to ask, have you shown any signs of cognitive issues that would concern your doctor? None at all. Dr. Steinberg just examined me and confirmed I'm mentally sharp. Harold, someone falsified those records. That's what I suspected. This is fraud, Agnes. Your daughter committed fraud to get a financial kickback for institutionalizing you. I felt like I was going to be sick. My own daughter had lied about my mental health, forged medical records, and taken money to have me locked away in a nursing home. What do we do now? Now we fight back. And Agnes, when this is over, your children are going to wish they'd never started this war. That afternoon, Dr. Steinberg called me personally. Agnes, I've had an interesting conversation with someone claiming to be your daughter, requesting copies of medical records that don't exist. Someone has been using my name and office to create fraudulent documentation of cognitive decline. I'm reporting this to the medical board and the police. Thank you, Dr. Steinberg. Agnes, what your children are doing isn't just wrong. It's criminal. Document everything. And know that I'll testify on your behalf if needed. Friday arrived, the day I was supposedly moving to Sunset Manor. Instead of packing my belongings, I spent the morning working in my garden with James and Emma, who'd convinced Jennifer to drop them off early for their weekend visit. Grandma, why did Mom and Dad say you were moving today? Emma asked as we planted bulbs for spring blooms. You're still here. Because I decided I like my house too much to leave, I said simply. James looked up from the hole he was digging. Good. I was worried we wouldn't have anywhere to plant our vegetables next summer. At exactly 2 p.m., a van from Sunset Manor pulled into my driveway. Dorothy and I watched from the living room window as 2 staff members got out and approached the front door. I opened it before they could knock. Mrs. Henderson? The older woman looked at her clipboard uncertainly. I'm Sandra from Sunset Manor. We're here to help with your move-in today. I'm sorry you've wasted a trip, Sandra, but I won't be moving in today or any other day. There's been a mistake. She looked confused. But we have all your paperwork. Your daughter submitted your application weeks ago and paid the entrance fee. My daughter had no authority to do that. I never applied to Sunset Manor, never agreed to move there, and never authorized anyone to act on my behalf. Sandra checked her clipboard again. Mrs. Henderson, we have medical records indicating that you need assisted living care. Those medical records are fraudulent, Dorothy said, stepping up beside me. We've already reported the fraud to the appropriate authorities. The 2 staff members looked at each other uncomfortably. This was clearly not a situation they'd encountered before. I'm sorry for the confusion, Sandra said finally. We'll need to report this to our administration. Mrs. Henderson, you should know that your family won't be able to recover the entrance fee since you're declining services. After they left, Dorothy and I looked at each other and started laughing. We laughed until we cried, until our sides hurt, until we couldn't breathe. Did you see their faces? Dorothy gasped. They were expecting a confused old woman with dementia, I wheezed. Not 2 sharp-tongued sisters ready for battle. But our laughter died when Sarah's car pulled into the driveway an hour later. She got out alone, her face set in grim lines, and marched up to the front door. Mom, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say, Sarah. Sunset Manor called. They said you refused to move in. That's correct. And they said you claimed the medical records were fraudulent. That's also correct. Sarah's composure cracked slightly. Mom, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing here, but this isn't over. Yes, it is. It's over because I'm done being treated like a burden and an inconvenience by my own children. It's over because I've learned that you took money to have me institutionalized. It's over because you've shown me exactly how little my happiness and dignity mean to you. That referral fee was just what, Sarah? Just a little extra profit from disposing of your mother. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. For the first time, she seemed to realize how her actions looked from my perspective. Mom, I never meant for it to seem like we don't care about you. But you don't care about me, Sarah. Not really. You care about what I can provide for you. When I was useful babysitting your children, giving you money when you needed it, hosting family gatherings, I had value. But now that you think I'm too old to be useful anymore, you want me warehoused somewhere convenient. Tears started running down her face, but I felt no sympathy. These were crocodile tears shed because she'd been caught, not because she was genuinely sorry. What do you want from us? She asked. I want you to leave me alone. I want you to stop trying to control my life. I want you to respect my choices and my independence. And most importantly, I want you to think about the example you're setting for Emma and James. What do you mean? They're watching how you treat me, Sarah. They're learning that when people get old or inconvenient, you discard them. Is that really the lesson you want to teach your children? She flinched like I'd slapped her. They're also learning that their weekend visits with me, the time they spend in this house, learning to garden and bake and feeling completely loved, might end because their parents decided their grandmother was disposable. We never said you were disposable. Your actions said it for you. After Sarah left, I sat in my garden as the sun set, feeling emotionally drained but also strangely peaceful. Dorothy brought me a cup of tea and settled into the chair beside me. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Free," I said, surprising myself. For the first time in weeks, I feel free. Free from what? Free from trying to earn my children's love. Free from worrying about their approval. Free from making myself smaller to accommodate their convenience. Dorothy nodded. "You've been a wonderful mother, Aggie. But you don't owe them your entire life." Over the weekend, Emma and James seemed to sense that something important had shifted. They were more clingy than usual, more affectionate, more eager to help with every task. "Grandma, are you sad?" Emma asked Saturday night as I tucked her into the guest room bed. "Not sad, sweetheart. Tired maybe, but not sad. Mom and Dad seem angry about something." I sat down on the edge of her bed. "Sometimes adults disagree about things. Your parents and I have different ideas about what's best for me." "What kind of different ideas?" "They think I should move to a smaller place where other people can take care of me. I think I should stay here and take care of myself." James poked his head out from under his covers. "I think you should stay here too. Who would take care of the garden if you left? And who would teach us to bake cookies?" Emma added. "And who would read us stories in the funny voices?" James giggled. "Those are all very good points," I said, kissing them both good night. But as I turned off the lights, Emma's voice stopped me. "Grandma, we love you very much." "I love you too, sweethearts. More than you'll ever know." Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Harold Wishman arrived with a briefcase and a grim expression. "Agnes, we need to talk. Your children have filed for emergency guardianship." My heart sank. Despite all our preparations, despite all the evidence of my competency, they were still trying to take control of my life. What does that mean? It means there will be a hearing within the next 2 weeks where a judge will determine whether you're capable of managing your own affairs. "Agnes, I have to warn you. They've hired an aggressive attorney who specializes in elder law." Dorothy leaned forward. "What kind of evidence are they presenting?" "They're claiming Agnes is isolated from friends and family, unable to maintain her property, showing signs of memory loss, and becoming increasingly paranoid and hostile toward people trying to help her." "That's all lies," I said angrily. "I know it's lies. But lies can be convincing if they're presented well. We need to be prepared to fight this with everything we have." Over the next week, Harold and I worked tirelessly to build our case. Dr. Steinberg provided detailed medical records and agreed to testify about my excellent health. We gathered financial records proving I was managing my money responsibly. We collected character references from friends, neighbors, and church members attesting to my mental sharpness and social connections. Most importantly, we documented every instance of my children's threats, manipulation, and fraud. But the strongest evidence came from an unexpected source. "Grandma Agnes?" Emma's voice was small over the phone. "Mom and Dad are asking me and James weird questions about you." "What kind of questions, sweetheart?" "Like, do you ever seem confused when we're visiting? Do you forget things? Do you seem scared of other people?" My blood ran cold. They were coaching the grandchildren to testify against me. "Emma, I want you to remember something very important. Always tell the truth, no matter who asks you questions. Can you do that for me?" "Yes, Grandma. But I don't understand why they're asking." "You're not confused or scared. You're the smartest person I know." After I hung up, I called Harold immediately. "They're coaching the children to lie about my mental state." "That's a serious miscalculation on their part," Harold said grimly. "Judges don't like it when children are used as pawns in adult legal battles." The hearing was scheduled for the following Friday at 2 p.m. As the day approached, I found myself swinging between confidence and terror. I knew I was mentally and physically capable of independent living, but I also knew that legal proceedings could be unpredictable. Thursday night, Dorothy found me sitting in the garden at midnight, unable to sleep. "You're going to be fine tomorrow," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "What if I'm not? What if they convince the judge that I'm incompetent? Dorothy, what if I lose everything? Then we'll fight the decision." "But Aggie, you're not going to lose. You have truth on your side, and truth has a way of winning in the end." Friday morning dawned clear and bright. I dressed carefully in my best navy blue suit, the one I'd worn to my husband's funeral and my grandson's baptism. Dorothy had suggested I look competent but sympathetic, whatever that meant. The courthouse was modern and intimidating, with marble floors that echoed our footsteps as Harold led us to the appropriate courtroom. Sarah and Michael were already there with their attorney, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit who looked like she ate elderly people for breakfast. What shocked me was seeing Emma and James sitting in the hallway with Jennifer, both looking confused and scared. "Why are the children here?" I asked Harold. "Your children's attorney plans to call them as witnesses." I felt sick. They were actually going to make those babies testify about whether their grandmother was competent to live independently. The hearing began promptly at 2 p.m. Judge Patricia Coleman was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. She listened carefully as Michael and Sarah's attorney presented their case. "Your Honor, Mrs. Henderson is a 68-year-old widow living alone in a large, deteriorating property. She has become increasingly isolated from family and friends, shows signs of memory loss and poor judgment, and has begun exhibiting paranoid behavior toward people trying to help her." The attorney presented the fraudulent medical records as evidence, along with photographs of my house that had clearly been taken months ago when the gutters needed cleaning and before I'd had the exterior painted. "Mrs. Henderson's children are concerned for her safety and well-being. They have secured a place for her at an excellent assisted living facility, where she can receive appropriate care." When it was Harold's turn, he systematically demolished their case piece by piece. "Your Honor, Mrs. Henderson is in excellent health, as confirmed by her physician of 15 years. She maintains an active social life through her church and community involvement. She manages her finances responsibly, and has made significant improvements to her property in recent months." He presented Dr. Steinberg's medical evaluation, financial records, photographs of my beautifully maintained house and garden, and character references from dozens of people who knew me well. "Most importantly, Your Honor, Mrs. Henderson has been the victim of fraud. The medical records submitted by petitioners are falsified documents that misrepresent her health status. This fraud was committed to secure financial benefits from the assisted living facility." The judge's eyebrows rose sharply at that revelation. But the moment that changed everything came when Emma was called to testify. The 8-year-old walked to the witness stand with obvious reluctance, her eyes finding mine across the courtroom. The opposing attorney smiled at her in what was clearly meant to be an encouraging way. "Emma, you spend time with your grandmother every weekend, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am." "During those visits, have you noticed that your grandmother seems confused or forgetful?" Emma looked directly at me, then back at the attorney. "No, ma'am. Grandma Agnes remembers everything. She remembers all my friends' names and what grade I'm in and what my favorite foods are, and the names of all the flowers in her garden." The attorney looked slightly annoyed. "But Emma, doesn't your grandmother sometimes seem scared of other people or say things that don't make sense?" "No, ma'am. Grandma is brave. When Mrs. Wilson's dog got loose and was running around barking at everyone, Grandma went right up to it and calmed it down. And she always makes sense. She's the one who helps me with my homework when I don't understand." "Emma, your parents are worried that your grandmother can't take care of herself anymore. Have you seen any signs that she needs help with daily tasks?" Emma's face scrunched up in genuine confusion. "But she does take care of herself. She cooks for us every weekend and tends her garden and cleans the house and walks to the store and drives her car. She takes care of James and me, not the other way around." The attorney was clearly not getting the answer she expected. "Emma, wouldn't you like your grandmother to live somewhere safer, where trained professionals can make sure she's okay?" And that's when 8-year-old Emma Henderson delivered the blow that ended the hearing. Why would Grandma Agnes need other people to take care of her when she takes such good care of everyone else? She's the strongest person I know. And if she moved away, who would love James and me the way she does? There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the court reporter was wiping her eyes. Judge Coleman called a brief recess, and when she returned, her expression was stern. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented in this case, and I have several serious concerns about the petitioner's motives and methods." She looked directly at Michael and Sarah. "First, the medical records you submitted appear to be fraudulent. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation." Sarah's face went white. Second, your attempt to coach the minor children to provide false testimony is deeply troubling and reflects poorly on your fitness to make decisions for anyone. Third, and most importantly, Mrs. Henderson has demonstrated through both testimony and evidence that she is fully capable of managing her own affairs. She is mentally competent, physically healthy, financially responsible, and socially connected. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Henderson, it's clear that you have been the victim of an attempted financial exploitation scheme disguised as concern for your welfare. Your children's petition for guardianship is denied. But Judge Coleman wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order prohibiting the petitioners from harassing, intimidating, or attempting to coerce Mrs. Henderson regarding her living situation. Any future contact must be respectful and consensual. As we left the courthouse, Emma and James ran to hug me while their parents stood frozen in shock. "Grandma, does this mean you get to stay in your house?" James asked. "Yes, sweetheart. I get to stay in my house." "Good," Emma said fiercely. "It's your house and no one should make you leave if you don't want to." Over the next few months, my life gradually returned to normal, but it was a new normal built on the foundation of hard-won independence and self-respect. Sarah and Michael were charged with fraud and elder abuse. Sarah pled guilty and received 2 years probation plus community service at a senior center, which I thought was ironically appropriate. Michael fought the charges but was eventually convicted and sentenced to 6 months in jail. The real estate contract was voided, and I kept my house. I used some of my savings to make improvements that would help me age in place safely, installing grab bars in the bathrooms, improving lighting, and updating the security system. Dr. Steinberg helped me find a housekeeping service that comes twice a month, not because I need help with daily living, but because I decided I'd rather spend my time on activities I enjoy than scrubbing floors. Dorothy returned to Arizona but calls every day and visits for extended periods several times a year. We've grown even closer through this experience, bonded by battle and the knowledge that family loyalty runs deeper than blood when it comes to doing what's right. The most difficult part was rebuilding my relationship with Emma and James. Jennifer was so embarrassed by the whole situation that she initially tried to prevent the children from visiting me, claiming she didn't want them caught in the middle of family conflict. But Harold helped me establish legal visitation rights as their grandmother, and eventually Jennifer realized that cutting the children off from someone who loved them unconditionally was hurting them more than anyone else. Emma and James adapted to the new family dynamics with the resilience of childhood. They know their parents did something wrong, but they also know they're still loved by everyone involved. We don't talk about the court case or the charges, but we do talk about making good choices and treating people with respect. The garden James and I planted has flourished beyond our wildest dreams. The sunflowers he was so excited about grew 8 feet tall and attracted goldfinches and butterflies all summer long. The tomatoes produced enough fruit to supply half the neighborhood, and James proudly gave away bags of vegetables to anyone who admired our harvest. Emma has become an accomplished baker. She can make chocolate chip cookies from memory now, and she's working on mastering my grandmother's recipe for apple pie. Every Saturday morning, our kitchen fills with the smell of whatever she's decided to try, and every creation is met with enthusiastic approval from her devoted taste-testing team. But the most profound change has been in my own sense of self-worth and empowerment. For too many years I defined myself entirely through my relationships with others. As a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I'd never learned to value myself as an individual with my own needs, desires, and rights. The crisis with my children forced me to discover parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, more resilient than I imagined, and more valuable than I've been led to believe. I'm still a devoted grandmother and a loving friend, but I'm also Agnes Henderson, a competent, independent woman who can make her own decisions and fight her own battles when necessary. 6 months after the court hearing, I received an unexpected phone call from Sarah. "Mom, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I needed to call and apologize." I listened in silence as she continued. "The community service at the senior center has been eye-opening. I've been working with elderly people who've been abandoned by their families, and I'm starting to understand what we almost did to you." Her voice was thick with tears. "I met a woman yesterday who hasn't seen her grandchildren in 3 years because her son decided she was too much trouble. She showed me pictures of them, and all I could think about was Emma and James and how much they adore you. Sarah, please let me finish. I need to say this. I was wrong. Not just legally wrong but morally wrong. You're a wonderful mother and grandmother, and you deserved so much better from us. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, but I needed you to know that I understand now what we were trying to take away from you. I closed my eyes, feeling the anger I'd carried for months begin to soften slightly. And Mom? The money. The referral fee from Sunset Manor. I donated it to the Alzheimer's Association. It felt too dirty to keep. We talked for an hour that day, really talked for the first time in years. Sarah told me about her financial pressures, her marriage problems, and her fear of growing old herself. She didn't make excuses for her actions, but she helped me understand how she'd rationalized them at the time. I told her about the loneliness I'd felt when they started treating me like a burden, about the fear of losing my independence, and about the devastation of believing my own children saw me as disposable. It wasn't a magical reconciliation. Trust, once broken, takes time and consistent effort to rebuild. But it was a beginning. Michael has been slower to acknowledge his wrongdoing. His jail sentence and the criminal conviction cost him his job in banking, and he struggled to find work with a fraud conviction on his record. He's angry and bitter, and he blames me for ruining his life by fighting back against their guardianship petition. But Jennifer brought the children to see me recently, and she told me that Michael has been attending counseling and trying to understand where he went wrong. She thinks he might be ready to have a conversation with me soon. I'm willing to listen when he's ready, but I'm no longer desperate for his approval or acceptance. I've learned the difference between love and manipulation, between genuine concern and selfish control. As I sit here in my garden on this beautiful spring morning, watching Emma teach James how to transplant seedlings, I'm filled with gratitude for the unexpected gift my children's betrayal gave me. They tried to take away my home, my independence, and my dignity. Instead, they gave me something far more valuable, the knowledge of my own strength and worth. This house is more than just the place where I live. It's the tangible proof that I can stand up for myself, that I can fight for what matters to me, that I don't have to accept other people's definitions of what my life should look like. The roses are blooming again, more beautiful than ever after last year's careful pruning. The vegetables are planted and already showing green shoots of promise. The front porch swing that my husband installed 30 years ago still holds me comfortably as I watch the neighborhood children walk home from school. Everything that my children wanted to take away from me is still here: my home, my independence, my sense of purpose and belonging. But more importantly, I've regained something I'd lost without even realizing it was gone. My sense of my own value. I'm not just someone's mother or grandmother or neighbor. I'm Agnes Henderson, and I'm exactly where I belong. When people ask me about my experience, I tell them that the most important lesson I learned is that respect isn't something you can demand from others. It's something you have to claim for yourself. My children didn't respect my wishes or my autonomy, because I trained them to believe that my wishes and autonomy didn't matter. I'd spent so many years putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own that I'd forgotten I had the right to prioritize my own happiness and well-being. The irony is that by standing up for myself, by refusing to be pushed around or discarded, I actually improved my relationships with the people who matter most to me. Emma and James see me differently now, not just as their sweet, accommodating grandmother, but as a strong woman who can take care of herself and others. They're learning from my example that it's possible to be kind and loving while still maintaining boundaries and self-respect. Even my neighbors and friends treat me with a new level of admiration. Mrs. Patterson, my 83-year-old neighbor, told me she was inspired by my courage to contact a lawyer about her own son's attempts to control her finances. "Agnes," she said, "you showed me that being old doesn't mean being powerless." That's become my unofficial motto. Being old doesn't mean being powerless. Every morning when I wake up in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by my own chosen possessions and memories, I'm reminded that I have the power to shape my own life. I can choose where to live, how to spend my time, whom to trust with my heart and my confidence. I can choose to forgive my children, while still maintaining the boundaries that protect my independence. I can choose to love my grandchildren fiercely, while teaching them that love should never require the sacrifice of personal dignity. I can choose to be helpful and generous without being a doormat. Most importantly, I can choose to see my own worth not through other people's eyes, but through the clear lens of self-respect and hard-won wisdom. As the sun sets over the garden that James and I planted together, as the scent of Emma's latest baking experiment drifts through the kitchen window, as Dorothy's voice fills my ear with weekly news and daily love, I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Not because it's convenient for anyone else, not because it fits someone else's plan for my life, but because it's my choice. And at 68 years old, I've finally learned that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. They said I didn't belong here anymore. But this morning, as I sit on my front porch with my coffee and watch the world wake up around me, I've never felt more at home in my own life. This is my house. This is my independence. This is my choice. And no one, not even my own children, has the right to take that away from me. The for sale sign is long gone from my front yard, replaced by Emma's handmade garden marker that reads, Grandma Agnes's Happy Place. And that's exactly what it is.